to do this, you've done it.
Yes, we are redeploying personnel to stations that are close by. Company 44, the medic unit is going to be moved there, and from Company 55, and then we're going to disperse the career personnel to the two closest stations around them.
And in essence, you're going to have a hazmat unit at 41, but there's going to be no staffing, is that correct?
We're going to move the hazmat coordinator to Company 41 and another personnel, and then the personnel moving from Company 41 will be responsible to come back and get the hazmat unit out.
But there'll be fire engines responding out of Station 41?
No fire suppression personnel will respond.
Will there be ambulance crews?
No ambulance crews.
Isn't that, in a sense, closing a fire station there?
No.
Why not?
Because the personnel from that station are just moving down the street.
But that firehouse is closed, correct?
It is not using suppression personnel there.
I don't understand. If you don't have fire engines there and ambulances there and people responding with fire engines and ambulance is there, isn't that firehouse closed?
No.
Why is that? Explain that to the public.
Okay, they're going to have hazmat personnel there, and they're going to be working with the suppression personnel that are moving down the street.
Will they be able to respond on fire calls or ambulance calls?
They will not respond on fire and ambulance calls. They will be responding from Company 41. We have 22 fire stations within a mile and a half, with overlapping coverage, and we can no longer afford to do business that way. We have to be responsible to the citizens to use our personnel in the best way.
If there's a fire call on Riggs Road by Station 44, will there be suppression units responding from that station?
There'll be suppression units responding from Company 34.
But there'll be no fire services out of 44, is that correct?
No suppression personnel will be.
But that ambulance crew will be, or medic crew, is that correct?
The medic unit will be responding out of that station.
But they won't go on fire, they won't take fire equipment, is that correct?
They will not take engines.
Right. So there is a reduction of services at both those stations, is that correct?
There will be no reduction in service. They'll be able to be covered by the surrounding companies.
You're the guy, and he's the guy that tells me every second counts in emergency. Is it not going to take longer now to get those resources to where they need to be?
Every day, stations respond on calls, and other stations have to come in and fill in behind them. So the emphasis on the fact that fire suppression personnel will be responding from one location or another is not an issue.
But it takes longer.
Well, that's conjecture that it takes longer because they could be going on a call anywhere at any time. I mean, if you want to focus on the fact that the fire suppression personnel will not be sitting in the fire station, then you could look at it that way, but they're not always sitting in the fire station and come from different directions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
At Stations 5 in Capitol Heights and 13 in Riverdale Heights, you're removing career staff. The only thing will be there is volunteers. They don't have much volunteer participation at either of those stations. I think you can probably see the statistics on the days that you've done the rotating closures there. They're not getting out.
Right. There are companies that have a very few volunteers, but we have to give credit to the companies that have a lot of volunteers. I mean, volunteers provide a vast majority of services in this county, and so to focus on one fire station and say that they're within a mile and a half of another fire station, we expect the companies around them to provide that service.
Compared to 10 or 15 years ago, I know daytime you'll have a crew at 17, but in the evening when they're having trouble getting out, you got 5, 6 is gone, 17. There are 3 fire stations that in many cases will not be responding like they used to, and that's 3 that were right next to each other.
Well, you've seen 17 do just fine with the staffing that they have. And with the upstaff and staffing at Company 8 and Company 26, you should not see any change in the service.
Do you expect these stations at Capitol Heights and Riverdale Heights, do you really expect that the volunteers are going to be able to respond on a regular basis to fire calls?
They'll be able to respond as they volunteer. That's what the nature of the business is volunteer, and when they're available, they will respond.
The decision why you chose these stations. Some people say you chose the 2 stations on the Montgomery County border, one because it's on the Montgomery County border, and because there's really no volunteers complaining about that. I mean, you have a lot of other stations that are closer together than 41 is to other stations. Why did you choose those stations?
Well, I can't address what people say. I mean, people say everything. I'm telling you, the reason why we chose those stations is because of the proximity of one station to another, and we have sufficient coverage in that area.
Now, Montgomery County, have you heard from them? I imagine they're not too pleased when they're moving resources along the border when you have a strong mutual aid agreement.
I haven't heard anything from Montgomery County, and I don't think there's an issue with Montgomery County.
We can certainly ask them. So the overall message is, you say, even though other people might look at otherwise, you're clearly saying we're not closing firehouses, we're just removing staffing.
We are placing our staffing in the best areas where they can provide the service. There's no closing of the fire station. Some will change their mission from a focus of suppression to EMS, and then the hazmat will be the focus of that.
Isn't it just semantics, Chief? Let's be honest. I mean, in effect, when a volunteer crew isn't at the station, and we've been to many stations where that hasn't happened, isn't it just semantics saying it's not closed when there isn't staffing to get out?
Make that your last one.
I don't participate in semantics. I just told you what we're doing, and I think it's pretty clear.
Thank you, Chief. Go ahead, we'll get a shot.